Welcome to Fractured Chaos.
You ever have someone look you dead in the eye and tell you that your own mother was toxic, then kiss your forehead like they saved you? That's how he did it. That's how he started pulling the threads, one by one, until my world collapsed like it was made of wet tissue. My name's Francesca, and I didn't just cut off my mom. I erased her, because he told me to, and I was stupid enough to believe he was protecting me. But now I know, he wasn't hiding me from her. He was hiding her from me, because she knew. She always knew. When I turned 19, things got weird. I'd just moved back in with my mom and stepdad, Greg. He was charming. Everyone said that. Greg's such a good guy. Greg really stepped up. And to me, back then, he was. He paid for my books, helped me get my first car, never yelled, always smiled. But he hated when I spent time with my mom. He'd say things like, "You two are trauma bonded. She manipulates you. That's why you feel guilty every time she cries." I thought he was protecting me from emotional damage. Until one night, he told me she'd called him abusive. He laughed it off, said, "She's projecting, she's the unstable one." And I believed him. So when he said, "You need distance, Francesca. You need to heal away from her," I ghosted my mom, blocked her number, changed my email, stopped showing up on holidays. I thought I was freeing myself. But now I realize I wasn't cutting off toxicity. I was cutting off the only person who would have told me the truth. The thing about manipulation is that it doesn't happen overnight. It's subtle. It's patient. It builds on itself until you can't tell where their voice ends and yours begins. Greg had been in my life since I was 11. 7 years of slow, careful programming. 7 years of him positioning himself as my protector, my guide, the only person who really understood me. He never said my mom was evil. That would have been too obvious. Instead, he'd sigh after she'd leave the room and say, "I worry about how she affects your self-esteem." Or he'd catch me crying after an argument and whisper, "You deserve better than walking on eggshells." He made himself my safe harbor in a storm he created. And by 19, I was so deep in his version of reality that when he suggested I needed space from her, it felt like wisdom, like self-care, like the brave thing to do. I moved into his cousin's apartment across town, told myself I was finally taking control of my life. For 3 years, I built a new existence. New friends who only knew Greg's version of my family history. A job at a bookstore where I could disappear into other people's stories. A therapist who specialized in family trauma recovery. Someone Greg had recommended. Even my therapist believed my mother was the problem. It started with a voicemail. 3 years after I went no contact, I got a message from an old neighbor, Mrs. Ellis. She said, "Francesca, your mom's been trying to reach you. She's sick. And she said something about Greg, something you should know." I didn't call back. I played it for Greg. He said, "This is what narcissists do. She's baiting you. When they can't control you directly, they use other people. Don't fall for it." Then he deleted the voicemail himself. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how he rushed to erase it. How his voice shook, not with anger, but with panic. Like he was afraid of something. Then I remembered something from years ago. A random comment my mom made at the kitchen table. She said, "You were only 11 when Greg moved in. You don't remember how it started." I'd brushed it off, assumed she was being dramatic, like Greg always said she was. But now it echoed like a warning I missed. A week later, I dug out an old photo album from the attic. In it were pictures of me at 12, 13, 14, always with Greg in the background. Birthday parties, school plays, family dinners. He was in everything, always close, always watching. But something stuck out. There were no pictures of my 11th birthday. None. Just a gap. Like the year got erased. I asked Greg about it. He said, "That was a bad year. Your mom was drinking a lot. She was unstable. I didn't want to document the chaos." But my mom never drank. Not once. I'd never seen her touch alcohol in my entire life. I felt sick. Because I suddenly remembered that was the year I stopped wearing tank tops. The year I became quiet. The year I started having nightmares I couldn't explain. And the year Greg started calling me his little angel. I called Mrs. Ellis back. She answered in a whisper, like she was scared someone might hear her. She said, "Your mom tried sending you a letter. Multiple letters, actually. She asked me to give them to you. I never did. I'm sorry, honey, I didn't want to get involved, but they're still in my drawer. She read me the first one. It said, Francesca, you were too young to understand what was happening. I tried to protect you, but I handled it wrong. Greg crossed a line. Not with me, with you. When I found out, I confronted him. That's when he turned you against me. Please, baby, remember who you were before him. Remember who loved you first. My legs gave out. Because suddenly, I remembered waking up in the middle of the night at 11, with him sitting at the edge of my bed, telling me it was our secret, that my mom wouldn't understand, that she'd blame me if she found out. And I never told anyone. Until now, I never told anyone. The memories came back in pieces. Like shards of glass I'd buried so deep I'd forgotten they were cutting me from the inside. I remembered the way he'd find excuses to come into my room. Just checking on you. The way he'd hug me a little too long, a little too tight. The way he'd touch my hair and call me beautiful in a voice that made my skin crawl even at 11. I remembered my mom's face changing around that time, how she started watching us more carefully, how arguments between them started behind closed doors, always in hushed, angry voices. I remembered the day she sat me down and asked if Greg had ever made me uncomfortable. And I lied, because he'd taught me to lie, because he'd convinced me that what happened was normal, was love, was our special bond. And when she kept pushing, kept asking questions, Greg told me she was trying to break up our family, that she was jealous of how close we were, that if I wanted peace, I needed to tell her to stop. So I did. I defended him. I told her she was being paranoid and mean. I watched her face crumble and I felt powerful, like I was protecting someone I loved. I was 11 years old and I chose my abuser over my protector because I didn't know the difference. I didn't scream when the memories came back. I didn't cry. I waited. And the next morning over coffee, I asked him one question. Why did you need me to cut her off? He froze, his coffee cup halfway to his lips, steam rising between us like smoke from a funeral pyre. Then he said, because she was trying to poison you against me. But I saw it, in his eyes, the slip, the admission. Because if she was trying to poison me against him, that meant she knew something worth poisoning me about. And I said, she didn't poison me, Greg, you did, and now I remember. That's when he got up and walked out. He never came back. The hardest part wasn't remembering what he did. It was remembering what I did. How I'd thrown away the person who tried to save me. How I'd been so thoroughly programmed that I'd done his work for him. I found 17 more letters from my mom hidden in Mrs. Ellis's kitchen drawer. One for every month I'd been gone, each one shorter than the last, like she was running out of hope. The final one just said, I'm here when you're ready, I love you, I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better. It took months to undo the damage, to find my mom again, to rebuild what he shattered. She was different, older, softer, with gray in her hair I didn't remember. When I walked through her door, she didn't ask questions. She didn't demand explanations. All she did was hold me. No, I told you so. No anger, just, you came home. We sat at her kitchen table, the same one where she'd tried to warn me all those years ago, and she told me the truth. She'd found evidence, pictures on his phone he'd forgotten to delete. She'd threatened to call the police, and that's when he convinced me she was the enemy. That's when the isolation campaign began in earnest. She'd tried everything, therapy, family counseling, even talking to a lawyer. But I was so deep under his influence that every attempt to save me just pushed me further away. I should have called the police anyway, she said. I should have risked losing you completely to keep you safe. You did lose me, I said. For 3 years you lost me. But you came back, she whispered. You came back. I filed a report. Nothing came of it. Too much time had passed. No physical evidence. Just trauma and memory and the word of a young woman against a man who'd spent years building a reputation as a pillar of the community. But I have my voice now, and I use it. I speak at workshops about grooming and manipulation. I tell people to look for the patterns, the isolation, the rewriting of history, the way abusers make themselves the hero of every story. I tell them to trust the people who've known them longest, to question anyone who asks them to cut off family without concrete, verifiable reasons. And I tell them this: if someone ever tells you to cut off the people who raised you, if they say it's for your healing, ask yourself who benefits from your silence. Because sometimes the person pulling you away from the fire is the one who lit the match. My mom and I are still rebuilding. Trust doesn't come back overnight when it's been shattered so completely, but we're learning to be mother and daughter again, instead of victim and survivor. She keeps my old room exactly the way it was when I left, not as a shrine, but as a promise. A reminder that home was always here, waiting. And sometimes, late at night, I sit in that room and think about the girl I was at 11, the one who was afraid and confused and looking for someone to trust. I wish I could go back and tell her that the person trying to save her wasn't the enemy. But I can't go back. All I can do is go forward, carrying the truth with me like armor. The thread puller is gone. The web he wove is torn. And I'm still here. We're still here. That has to be enough.